Living in Sunnyside Estates had never been my first choice, but the location made my commute effortless, and the nearby walking trails created the perfect atmosphere for Maverick, my service dog. Maverick is a stunning golden retriever trained to help me manage PTSD episodes from my years of military service overseas. He's exceptionally well trained, always wears his service vest when we're outside, and responds to commands with absolute precision. I know the Americans with disabilities act almost by heart. It's essential when your safety depends on a service animal. Still, I never expected I'd have to quote federal law to my HOA president the first time I crossed paths with Karen Whitfield. She appeared with a clipboard in hand and a scowl that looked permanently carved into her expression. She introduced herself as the HOA president with a tone that made it clear she believed I should be impressed. "I don't recall approving a dog in this community," she said, narrowing her eyes at Maverick, who sat perfectly still at my side. I politely explained that Maverick was a service dog, not a pet, and therefore exempt from the HOA's pet restrictions under federal law. She huffed, muttered something about people always finding loopholes, and walked away. I should have recognized the warning signs right then. In the next few weeks, I received 3 separate violation notices. One claiming my grass was a 1/4 inch too tall, another stating my mailbox wasn't the correct shade of black, and a third accusing me of leaving my garbage can visible from the street for roughly 45 minutes after pickup. Each notice was signed with Karen's elaborate signature, complete with a smiley face that felt more threatening than pleasant. I complied with everything, hoping to avoid issues. Though I suspected these petty complaints were only the beginning, my suspicion was confirmed during the next HOA meeting, where Karen proposed a new rule requiring all animals, including service animals, to be registered with the board and to wear HOA-approved identification. When I raised my hand and pointed out the conflict with the Americans with Disabilities Act, she immediately cut me off, insisting that federal laws didn't override community standards. Several neighbors shifted uncomfortably, yet none of them spoke up. After the meeting, Karen approached me and whispered, "If you want to be difficult, I can be difficult too." Her breath smelled like coffee and pure intimidation. The following weekend, I was enjoying a peaceful morning on my front porch with Maverick sprawled at my feet. I was reading the newspaper when a shadow appeared across the lawn. There stood Karen in her usual khaki shorts and polo shirt, holding a spray bottle. "Your dog is violating the new pet ordinance by not wearing proper HOA identification," she announced loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear. I calmly reminded her Maverick was a service animal protected under federal law, and the HOA couldn't legally demand special identification, especially since her rule hadn't even been officially implemented. Her face flushed an alarming shade of red. "I'm tired of you military types thinking you're above the rules," she snapped, stepping toward my yard. "If you won't comply, I'll handle this myself." Before I could react, she pointed the spray bottle at Maverick and sprayed him directly in the face with some kind of liquid. Maverick yelped and stumbled back, pawing at his eyes. I immediately stood up, stepped between them, and demanded to know what she'd sprayed. "Just a little vinegar and water mixture," Karen replied with a smirk. "It won't hurt him, but maybe now he'll learn to respect authority." My anger surged, but my military training kept me steady. I brought Maverick inside, rinsed his eyes thoroughly, and made sure he was okay. The vinegar solution irritated him, but fortunately caused no lasting harm. Once I was certain he was comfortable, I called the police. 911, "What's your emergency?" the dispatcher asked. I reported the assault on my service dog, emphasizing that interfering with the service animal is a federal offense. The dispatcher took my information and informed me officers were being sent immediately. 20 minutes later, 2 police officers arrived at my door, and I walked them through everything that had happened. I showed them Maverick's service animal certification, his training documents, and pointed out Karen's house across the street. One officer stayed with me to take a detailed statement while the other went to speak with her. From my window, I watched Karen waving her arms dramatically, her face twisted with outrage, though the officer questioning her looked completely unmoved by her performance. When both officers returned, they informed me that Karen had admitted to spraying Maverick. Though she insisted she was enforcing community standards, They said they had already explained that interfering with the service animal is a federal offense under the Americans with Disabilities Act, carrying significant fines and possible jail time. On top of that, her actions also qualified as animal cruelty under state law. They told me they were placing her under arrest and asked if I intended to press charges. I didn't hesitate, I said yes. Karen was led to the police cruiser in handcuffs, shouting threats about having me evicted and claiming the entire neighborhood would eventually side with her. Several neighbors had stepped outside to watch the chaos, and I heard one whisper, "She's finally gone too far." Another neighbor approached me afterward, apologizing for staying silent during the HOA meeting. "We've all been intimidated by her for too long," she admitted, glancing at Maverick, who had fully recovered and was back to his calm, attentive demeanor. The legal process moved surprisingly fast. Karen faced charges of interfering with the service animal, animal cruelty, and harassment. Her initial court appearance was almost theatrical. She arrived wearing designer clothing, accompanied by a pricey lawyer who looked more uncomfortable with every new piece of evidence presented. The judge was especially stern as he reviewed the case, making it clear that community rules never override federal law, especially laws protecting disability accommodations. While her trial was pending, an emergency HOA meeting was called. I attended with Maverick, and to my surprise, nearly every homeowner showed up. The board's vice president called for a vote of no confidence in Karen's leadership, citing her reckless behavior that had put the entire neighborhood at legal risk. The vote was unanimous. Karen was immediately removed from her position. Someone had even prepared new name tags for the board's table, and the space where Karen's used to sit was noticeably empty. When the criminal case concluded, Karen accepted a plea deal, reducing her charges to avoid a much longer sentence. The judge ordered her to serve 30 days in county jail, pay a $5,000 fine, complete 200 hours of community service at an animal shelter, and attend mandatory classes on disability rights. As the sentence was read aloud, Karen's face cycled through shock, fury, and finally the dawning realization of what her actions had cost her. "But I was just enforcing the rules," she protested weakly as the bailiff approached. The judge leaned forward and replied, "The most important rule, Miss Whitfield, is to respect the laws that protect service animals and the people who rely on them." As Karen was taken away to begin her sentence, our eyes met briefly across the courtroom. The entitlement and arrogance that had once defined her expression were gone, replaced with the humbled look of someone who had finally encountered a rule she couldn't twist or break. She mouthed something, maybe, "This isn't over," but we both knew that it absolutely was. Maverick sat beside me, poised and alert, the perfect picture of a service dog doing his job. I reached down and scratched behind his ears, and he leaned gently into my hand, a quiet reminder that we had weathered a storm together and come out stronger on the other side.